I actually want to ask you both the same question, Ambassador. I'm going to begin with you because we have this breaking news out of France. President Macron, it seems, headed to a runoff with his rival Marine Le Pen. What do you make of that, not just for Ukraine, but for this conversation, this broader conversation that we've had between the fight between autocracy and democracy?
Well, this is a critical election because clearly there is not just a difference of philosophy or how to govern France. There's a fundamental difference about how France should act in the world. Marine Le Pen is not a particularly pro-European, pro-EU politician. She wants to withdraw France from the military integrated command in NATO. And of course, she is closely aligned with Vladimir Putin, having received money some years ago for her party. So her election is not just a blow to France, because this is a far-right politician, anti-immigrant, very close to Putin, as I said. It would have major implications for Europe and in the ability of the West, which has been so united, to remain united in the focus of what's going on in Ukraine. It would be a real blow. The good news is that Macron was ahead, in fact, by a larger margin than he was 5 years ago. So hopefully the people of France will deliver the verdict that not only the French, but the rest of the world needs.
David, I take the ambassador's point. It also still shows you just how tenuous these alliances are, that as we are having these conversations, there are still many elements that are in flux.
Yeah, look, and in terms of, Ukraine and Le Pen, the Russians deny, these atrocities. And what's interesting is that this is the same playbook that we saw in the war in Bosnia. There were, shellings of marketplaces in Sarajevo, and the Serbs with Russian backing that had been put out there, or that the Bosnian Muslims themselves had fired these shells. And that's false. And the difference now is that we're seeing that in the digital age, where disinformation can spread to France, lies that Russia isn't responsible for these war crimes, and that can have an impact on the election in France. It's just a whole different challenge in the digital age.
And Ambassador, now back to what I promised our viewers. U.S. officials saying they've been documenting Russia's alleged war crimes. Can you give us a sense of the case they are going to build, what it is they are going to do with all that documentation?
Well, it's not just the U.S., of course, it's the international community and the United Nations, which ultimately, in some form or some body, will have to try the case. But the information they're collecting is it is a war crime to deliberately target non-combatant civilians. And all the pictures we've seen, unfortunately, over the last 6 weeks shows that what the Russians are doing is a direct, deliberate targeting of civilians. The World Health Organization has just announced that 103 medical targets, hospitals, ambulances, clinics, have been targeted by the Russians. All of that is a war crime. And of course, the kind of things we've seen in Bucha and other places where people have been executed, which is the only way you can call people who are shot in the back of their heads with their hands tied behind their back. That, too, of course, is a war crime. So it's that kind of information, photographic, intelligence information that you get from intercepting and wiretapping phones and other communications that will all be shared with the international investigators. And then, of course, the hard thing is, can we get the people who are responsible for this actually to stand trial? That's going to be hard as long as Vladimir Putin remains in power.
Yeah. David, you referenced misinformation, and I wonder for you, as the executive editor of a news site, what you see as the media's role in combating that disinformation.
I think it's consistently reporting that war crimes have been committed. I mean, the coverage out of Bucha, these images of civilians with their hands tied behind their back, the images from the train station of civilians, killed by a rocket as they waited to flee. And it's just consistently saying that and reporting that, covering the exhumations of mass graves. Not to go back to Bosnia, but the same thing happened. Exhumations were critical in proving this. But I agree with the ambassador. There will be overwhelming forensic evidence of atrocities and war crimes. The challenge will be bringing people to justice. And the United States is part of the problem here. The United States has not signed the treaty that created the International Criminal Tribunal that was set up in the late 90s to try war crimes, nor has Russia. And that weakens the court. And Ukraine should be an opportunity for the Biden administration to sign that treaty and strengthen the system for prosecuting war crimes.
Ambassador, I have about a minute left. Your final thoughts.
I think that's right. We should be a member of the International Criminal Court. But the real issue is to make sure that the Ukrainians actually win this war, so that whatever atrocities have been committed will, in some cases, have been worth it. We need to help the Ukrainians with everything we have to make sure that whatever atrocities may still occur do not benefit Russia or Vladimir Putin, and that he loses this war, which he started.